You ever get that feeling where you just, you know, want to understand the real story behind something, not just the quick summary?
Yeah, exactly. That's what we do here. We try to be that shortcut for you, digging through all the info to get to the interesting stuff.
We pull together the articles, the history, even what people are saying online, and try to make sense of it all.
Absolutely. And today we're tackling a word that, well, it sounds pretty grand, doesn't it? Accolade.
It really does. Accolade. And it turns out it's got a much richer story than just, like, getting an award.
Definitely. We looked into its origins, the etymology, how it's actually used today in different places, what it means academically, and even how creatives think about it.
Our mission really is to go way beyond just a dictionary definition. We want to map out its journey, uncover the different layers and maybe some connections you hadn't thought of.
Sound good. Let's dive in.
Okay, so origins first. Etymology. Where did accolade even come from?
Right. So it seems to enter English around 1591. There's this writer, Thomas Lodge.
Thomas Lodge, okay.
Yeah, he used it in a historical romance talking about knighthood, specifically about receiving the accolade, kneeling down the whole ceremony. So boom, right away, it's tied to knights.
Kneeling down for knighthood. Got it. So very ceremonial from the start.
Exactly. And if you trace it back further, it comes from Middle French, the word accolade.
Accolade.
Yeah, Accolee. And it meant either an embrace, like a hug, or specifically that act of making someone a knight with an embrace.
An embrace. Okay, so a physical action.
Precisely. And go back even further and you hit the Latin word collum.
Collum? What's that?
Collum. It just means neck.
The neck. Wow. Okay, that makes perfect sense with the kneeling knight image.
Doesn't it? And there's even an older English form, a call, from Old French coccoli. Same idea, an embrace, especially for a new knight. So that physical connection to the neck, the embrace, is really baked into the word's history.
That's fascinating. And collum, the neck. Does that connect to any other English words we might know?
It absolutely does. Think about collar.
Oh, wow. Collar, of course, from the neck. So the word for this formal knighting thing is related to the collar on your shirt.
Sort of blows your mind a bit, doesn't it? How history is just hiding in everyday words.
It really does. Okay, so let's talk more about that knighting ceremony. This accolade wasn't just a small part, right?
No, not at all. It was pretty much the main event, the core act in these medieval ceremonies. It was a huge deal, like a coming-of-age ritual for young nobles.
And you mentioned it could take different forms. Not just one specific action.
Right. Sometimes it was that classic tap on the shoulders with the flat side of a sword. And interestingly, sometimes the person being knighted was actually called the accolade during the ceremony itself.
So you could be the accolade while receiving the accolade.
Kind of, yeah. Or other times it was literally an embrace, a hug around the neck, different traditions, different ways to mark that big moment.
It really does underline its importance. When did this become like a formally recognized thing? Do we know?
Well, the earliest sort of formal reference we have from Germany is around 1184. There are records mentioning Emperor Frederick I's sons being made knights.
1184. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't spell out the exact gesture, the accolade itself, but it shows knighting was a recognized ceremony by then. But the roots go back even further.
Further than the 12th century, like how far?
We can see connections to older Germanic rituals from the 10th and 11th centuries, things like coming-of-age ceremonies where a young man was given his first weapon.
Oh, okay. Symbolizing adulthood.
Exactly. And that gradually morphed into the more formal knighting, the Bayeux Tapestry.
Yes, of course, with the Norman conquest.
Right. Well, it actually shows Harold being knighted by William the Conqueror. The gesture isn't perfectly clear, but it suggests the practice was definitely around then.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So deep roots in societal traditions.
Yeah.
And I guess it varied by region, too.
Oh, absolutely. In medieval France, for example, the ceremony was called a doublement. Initially, it was pretty secular, just marking a noble reaching adulthood.
A doublement. Okay.
But then, around 1200 or so, they started adding Christian elements, like the knight spending the night before in prayer gave it a more spiritual layer.
Right, adding religious significance.
And this whole adoubement thing became a really popular theme in medieval literature. The romantic stories, it showed up all the time.
So it was culturally a big deal. Now, let's jump forward. 21st century, accolade is still around, but obviously not just for knights anymore. How does that original idea show up today, like in France?
Okay, France today. It's interesting. If you're becoming a military knight of the Legion of Honor and it's a military ceremony, you do still get a tap on both shoulders.
With a sword.
With a sword, yeah, for Army and Navy. Or a dirk that's like a short dagger for the Air Force.
Okay, so the sword tap survives.
But here's the twist. Civilian members, or people in lower ranks of the order, they just get the accolade in the old sense, an embrace.
Ah, the actual hug. So both traditions are kind of still there.
Exactly. And even within the French military, there's another nuance. For graduating officers, there's a ceremony called adoubement, where a sword is held over their shoulders while kneeling. But the actual accolade part is then a separate hand movement, more like a brief hug or just a hand on the shoulder.
Subtle differences, but they clearly mean something specific. What about other countries? The Netherlands, for instance.
The Netherlands is quite different. For their military order of William, knights get struck on the left shoulder with the palm of the hand.
Just the hand, no sword.
Just the hand, first by the monarch, then by the other knights, and they don't kneel either, they stand.
Wow, okay. Standing, palm strike. Very different feel. Now, the UK, probably the one most people picture, right? With the Queen, now the King.
Right. In the UK, new knights kneel on a special stool, and the monarch dubs them on both shoulders with a sword.
The classic image. Is there a specific way they do it?
There is. Blade touches the right shoulder, then it's lifted, turned counterclockwise, and touches the left shoulder.
Okay, very precise. And do they actually say, "Arise, sir"?
They do not. That's one of those movie myths. It doesn't happen.
No way. Really?
Huh.
I definitely thought they did. And there are lots of different knighthoods in the UK, aren't there?
Oh, yes. 11 different types currently awarded, actually. They have a whole order of precedence. You've got Knights Bachelor, then various levels of the Order of the British Empire, KBE, GB.
Right. You see those letters after names?
Then the Royal Victorian Order, St. Michael and St. George, Order of the Bath, and then the really high ones, the Order of the Thistle and the Order of the Garter.
That's quite a list. What about women receiving damehoods? Do they get the sword tap?
No, interestingly, women receiving damehoods don't get the accolade, the dubbing part.
Oh, okay.
And clergy who receive knighthoods also aren't dubbed. The idea is that using a sword might be inappropriate for them.
That makes sense. It ties the sword specifically to a certain kind of maybe secular or military honor. What about the Vatican?
In the Vatican, for the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem, knights are dubbed during Mass. The prelate officiating taps them on the head and then both shoulders.
On the head, too. Interesting. So very much integrated into a religious service.
Definitely. And one more in Central Europe, there's the Habsburg Order of St. George. It's not like officially recognized by modern government.
Okay, sort of a historical continuation.
Exactly. But they still perform the accolade, sword tap on both shoulders while kneeling, usually done by Karl or Georg von Habsburg, keeping the tradition alive.
It's amazing how this one core idea branched out into so many variations. Okay, let's shift from the literal ceremony. Today we mostly hear accolade, meaning like praise or an award, right?
No.
When did that meaning take hold?
Yeah, that broader sense seems to have emerged around 1851. Merriam-Webster, for example, defines it as a mark of acknowledgement award, but also an expression of praise.
So it can be a concrete thing or
Yeah.
just high praise.
Exactly. And if you look at how it's used now, people get accolades for honorary degrees, for winning streaks in sports, for personal achievements, for artistic stuff. It's become a go-to word for significant recognition.
We even saw that online discussion, people debating accolade versus just award. What was the vibe there?
The general feeling, was that accolade just sounds fancier, grander, maybe, than a plain old award.
Yeah, it has more weight somehow.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't say you got an accolade for, I don't know, perfect attendance. But the Nobel Prize, that's definitely the highest accolade in its field. So it suggests a higher level of prestige or maybe more abstract recognition, not just a physical prize.
A real market distinction. Okay, let's narrow down again. Academia. Accolades are a big thing there, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Academic accolades are all about formally recognizing students who've really excelled in their education.
Like those Latin honors you see.
Exactly. Cum laude, magna cum laude, summa cum laude. Those are probably the most common academic accolades.
Right, what exactly do they mean, and how do students get them? Does it vary?
It definitely varies from school to school. Some use weighted GPAs, some don't. Some factor in tough courses like honors or AP classes. Some might even look at academic stuff outside of class. So you really have to check your specific university's rules.
Good point.
Yeah,
And the different levels, cum magna, summa, that's like a ranking.
pretty much. Cum laude is typically the first level of honors. Magna cum laude is higher with great praise, and summa cum laude is the top tier
Hmm.
with highest praise, usually based on GPA cutoffs or sometimes class rank.
Okay, different tiers of excellence. And getting these, it's not just about bragging rights, is it? They actually help.
Oh, for sure, they can really open doors. Employers look for them, graduate schools look for them. It signals, that you've got a proven track record of dedication and high achievement.
Makes sense. It's a clear signal.
Plus, honestly, it's a source of pride, right? Motivation. It's basically saying, job well done for all that hard work. Well-earned recognition.
Are there other kinds besides the Latin ones?
Yeah, definitely. Things like honor societies, Phi Beta Kappa, or ones for specific subjects, being on the dean's list for a great semester or year, research awards for students doing cool projects, even winning academic competitions. Lots of ways schools recognize academic success.
So Accolade has journeyed from this very physical knighting thing to awards, praise, academic honors. But what's the deeper significance? Why do accolades matter so much?
That's a great question. And it connects to some interesting thinking, like from the Music Bed blog, talking about creative fields. They suggest that wanting recognition, wanting accolades isn't just ego. It's actually a natural part of the conversation between an artist and their audience.
A conversation. How so?
Well, the idea is that you create something, you put it out there, and the accolades, the positive reception, it's feedback. It tells you your work is connecting, it's resonating with people.
Ah, so it's about impact, not just getting a pat on the back. They mentioned unselfish art, right?
Yeah, that was interesting. The idea that as creators mature, maybe the focus shifts. Less about just pleasing yourself and more about wanting to genuinely connect with and move other people. So accolades become like a barometer. Are you achieving that connection? It's not about fame for fame's sake, but about that shared human experience through the art.
That makes a lot of sense. And there was that filmmaker, Ronaldo Marcus Green, who called accolades a ticket to the game.
Yeah.
What did he mean by that?
His point was that getting recognition, like getting into a big film festival, it gets you noticed. It validates your work ethic, your talent up to that point. It opens doors.
So it gives you access.
Exactly. It's the entry ticket. But then, he stresses, that's when the real work starts. You have to prove you belong there, build on that initial success. But that ticket, that validation, it can also boost your confidence, which you definitely need when you're trying to get your next project off the ground.
Validation and opportunity. And ultimately, what's driving that desire for recognition?
I think the Music Bed blog put it really well. It boils down to that fundamental human desire to create something that means something to others, something that makes them feel something. Accolades are kind of the outward sign that maybe, just maybe, you've achieved that your work is being felt, valued.
Knowing you connected.
Precisely. And it's cool that even linguistically, like that European Scientific Journal pointed out, when readers shower accolades on writing, it highlights how the way something is written, the skill involved, directly leads to that positive response. The praise reflects the craft.
Right. The quality of the work itself earns the response.
Exactly. It all links back to the effort and the effect it has.
Wow. So Accolade, we've really unpacked that one. From a literal hug for a night.
Yeah, all the way to, getting summa cum laude or an Oscar buzz. It's traveled quite a distance.
We traced its history, that physical act of knighting, and saw how it just expanded outwards to mean praise, awards, formal recognition in so many areas. Military, academic, arts.
For sure. And it's clear that even though the form of an accolade looks wildly different today, a sword tap, a diploma, a good review, the basic idea is still there.
Which is?
Acknowledging achievement, celebrating something significant someone has done, recognizing merit.
That really brings us to a good place to pause and reflect. Maybe something for you listening to think about.
Yeah, consider the accolades in your own life. What forms do they take? Maybe it's not a formal award. Maybe it's praise from someone you respect, or getting that promotion, or even just that internal feeling of accomplishment being noticed by someone important to you.
What do those moments of recognition really mean to you? And who are the people whose acknowledgement, whose accolades truly matter? It's kind of an interesting way to think about our own achievements and relationships.